I'm sorry, got on track. You're too excited. But I don't want you to join this family. I don't want you to know the pain. I don't want you to have the illness. I want to keep your family whole. I want to work for you for change. I want to work for my grandson to have a brighter future.
Hey, Ive.
I don't want our kids to be walking down the street and have a cop say, I don't like that colored kid, pull out his gun, and guess what? He missed, and your child's dead. Happens that quickly. 17 shots at a suspect, and hit him twice. We need to reel these guys in. No more rollbacks, roll forwards. Straighten them out and have police officers who are there, who care. Not Larry Nelson, who doesn't go to court until he's killed his fourth person. Not another Wiley who blows up my back.
Hey, Lori. How are you?
Kills my son, and 8 years later walks up to San Joaquin, looks in, says, gun, bam, bam, bam. And his partner's on the other side of the car saying, I don't see no gun. And no gun was found. And you know what? The police said the shooting was justified.
That's what they say when they investigate
They shot
themselves.
a man in the back 7 times. And the police said the shooting was
Thanks,
justified.
Lori.
They said Tommy Lee was running at him, but his bullets were in the back. They said he had a knife.
Hey, Judo Johnny.
All they found was a pen, the same type of big pen that the police use because they're waterproof. What high school kid has a waterproof pen? They lie in court, and if their prosecuting buddies don't push the issue, they never land up on the Brady list. When enough of us say enough is enough, things can change. We did it when we passed the laws in 2020. We did it when we passed Let's Go in 2018. We got to do it again in 2022 because they're just not listening. And the legislature is listening to law enforcement. And the legislature needs to listen to us, and they will if they hear us, if we speak up, if we let our voices be heard.
Hey, Jingy.
But as long as we stay silent, nothing will change. And law enforcement wins. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. We're honored to have you here today. The next speaker is Poe. Poe LePay is going to come and talk to us about the loss of his loved one. Josiah Kamala. Thank you, Poe.
Can y'all hear me all right? Cool. David Novak, say his name.
David Novak.
David Novak, say his name.
David Novak.
I want to first off thank you, Debbie, and the family and everyone here locally for having me and inviting me to speak on this very special day for a very special season. After I read my short testimony, I'm going to share something from the sister of our loved one, who passed away, who was murdered by a Seattle police officer. Hello everyone, my name is Paul Apai. I am a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability and a member of the Office of Independent Investigations Advisory Board of the state of Washington. I'm also an impacted family member. My family experienced police violence firsthand December 31st, 2018, when then Seattle police officer Jared Keller racially profiled my cousin Yosia Faletongo, a 36-year-old Samoan man with two small boys. He pulled him over, ran him down, and shot Yosia while our family waited to share the new year with him. He never showed up. On body cam, as justification for pulling Yosia over, Seattle police officer Jared Keller is heard on body cam saying Yosia's vehicle looked shady. Yosia was a brown man driving in a predominantly white neighborhood. The conversation surrounding that comment was never had. Officer Jared Keller proceeded to pull Yosia over, provoked my cousin. He displayed aggression and hostility towards him, escalating the situation to the point Yosia felt he had to flee. He ran and then he was executed. He was chased down and shot in the back of the head. His last words were, "I'm not reaching." Last year we fought for our missing loved ones and to prevent more impacted families. We worked with and passed epic police accountability legislation to keep our communities safer. And it worked. We saw a 60% reduction in Washingtonians killed last year by police. Now, though, we are forced to again fight for our families, for our lost loved ones. Only this time we are fighting political pressure. We are fighting rollbacks against legislators who want to remain in office during elections this year. Let's keep it real. Since Yosia's murder, Seattle police officer Jared Keller was rewarded. He got a financial incentive, and he moved here to Spokane. Now police officer Jared Keller is here policing and preying on Spokane communities. We cannot be allowed to continue his predatory behavior, claiming reasonable suspicion to pull people over. We need our lawmakers to vote no on Senate Bill 5919, House Bill 1788, and House Bill 2037. There are a lot more. Make sure y'all stay connected. These bills water down the protections put in place last year. We do not need to allow reasonable suspicion as the basis for vehicle pursuit. We do not need to expand the use of physical and excessive force. We do not need more impacted families. Thank you all for listening. And please, one of the most important things you can do is write a letter to your lawmaker, personally, from you to them, one-on-one. Now I want to read a testimony from my sister, Yosia's sister, in regards to her support for House Bill 5485, Senate Bill 5485, which I also spoke on a few days ago. Hello, my name is Alberta Faletongo, and I am testifying in support of Senate Bill 5485. Yosia Faletongo was my brother-in-law. Yosia was killed after a traffic stop. The traffic stop was a low-level offense. The stop was clearly not about keeping people safe on the roads. It was something else. The officers called him shady on body cam. They were looking for a reason to stop him, and they used low-level traffic offenses as an excuse. I support this bill because it takes that excuse, that license to profile, away from police. Pacific Islanders like me are subject to discriminatory policing. We get pulled over more than we should, when officers speak to us, they speak to us differently. Many of us have been traumatized by over-policing in our community. It's important to limit those unnecessary contacts between police and the people they're supposed to serve. Senate Bill 5485 seeks to limit the danger of unnecessary violence. It will make us safer. We urge you to support this bill. That's all I have for now. We came a long way to come out here, and it's an honor to be here to share this space with you all. And I hope more than anything, lived experience has a special level of expertise where we have the formula to fix the divide between our law enforcement and our communities, but folks like that over there seek to divide. Listen to who's real out here. Turn off your media and your social media and get out here and talk to real folks. This stuff is really happening. You can act like it doesn't affect you, but it'll come to your door, I promise. At some level. As you can see, we have a diverse group of folks out here. We have a diverse group of folks out here, so there are a lot more than just our BIPOC communities that are affected by this. So I encourage you all to speak up and speak out. Thank you.
Can't clap with 6 camera all the hell.
I got a big
If I was to stand down here and set my camera top there, would you be above me where you could leave
Yeah.
the tree?
Oh, no, I'm fine where I'm at.
I gotta move my feet up to it.
You okay, Al?
While we're waiting, first off, I have 5 seats on the safety committee.
He is, Lori.
Hello?
Okay. I would encourage you, if you have the chance, to take that ride. Prove that idiot wrong. You know what? You ride along with the dog, and 95% of the time, you are going to find it the most boring waste of your time. Outside of the myth that all they do is eat donuts, the rest is the truth, because they don't do that.
They got the worst job in the world.
That's why they take the other 10%. And the bad ones find people to harass. They don't do nothing
Hey,
for
Oregon.
8 to 10 hours a day for $100,000 a year.
Or more.
So we want to take you right. We want to show you that you're all talk with no facts. The data doesn't lie. So stand up, people. Challenge them. Call them on their bluff. I bet you they won't take you for a ride. Because they don't want you to know the truth. Anybody who wants one of these, I've got 5.
Boy, I'm glad he's here.
Yes.
Thank you, Fred. Another interesting thing, too, is on these House bills, these 3 House bills that are still going through the legislature. If you go on the legislature website and you look it up, and I know Poe knows this, I know Fred knows this, I know Jim knows this, there are thousands of constituents, thousands of people that have written in and gone on site and voted con that they do not want these House bills. Thousands. One of them I looked at had like close to 3,000 that had written in and said they didn't want 2037. And I believe there was like 60 that said they did want it. But yet our representatives are still pushing it through the House because they're feeling the pressure from law enforcement.
Bootlickers.
Law enforcement should not have more of a say on if a House bill gets passed than we do.
We need to do away with their union.
Yes, the union has a lot to do with it. Another thing I want to point out for you to really take away from this, besides writing on these House bills to your legislature, is that crime is not, I repeat, is not on the increase in Washington State. Washington State should be heralded as a shining example of how lives can be saved when police are held accountable. 30 lives. 30 lives, at least, have been saved since last year. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Jim Leedy, and he also lost a loved one, and then he's going to talk to you a little bit about the prosecuting attorney.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Leedy, and in 2017, September 26th, my best friend Craig Johnson was killed by Idaho Bonner County sheriffs. deputies after a welfare check. We have a national problem. It's not just a state problem. It's not just a local problem. It is a national problem. But we can affect it locally. We need to push for police reform. We do not need rollbacks. Police control the narrative. They do public relation damage control. When they put out a press release, you need to be skeptical about it because they are trying to protect their own butts. Too many times they put something out there and the public just believes whatever is out there without questioning it. And if you question it, people attack you for it. But you have to question it because the police lie all the time. Knezovich, Sheriff Knezovich, you know, he promised body cams almost a year ago to put them on all his deputies. He has still not delivered. I've sent him emails last year, a couple of times, asking, where are we with the body cams? No reply. But you want to know what he's talked about? Police reform and how he hates it. He worries about being held accountable because he does not want to be held accountable. But he doesn't worry about your safety. Otherwise, he'd be moving forward with the body cams. And he has not. Knezovich is a liar.
Yes.
And he only is there for himself
Yes.
and his special interest.
Yes.
Do not let this guy get reelected ever again. Get rid of him. Chief Meidel, another one. He sat there and he started yelling back about police reform, how it's making it tough for them to police our city,
'Cause they
our
can't beat
county.
people up.
He's against police reform. He doesn't look at how can we work with the laws that have been enacted and save lives. He just complains about the laws that he has to go by now. It's interesting that our police officers have no problem figuring out what the laws are and what they're allowed to do whenever they want to arrest somebody. But the moment that a police officer's career is on the line, the moment that a police officer is going to be held accountable, suddenly laws just aren't that clear. Isn't that interesting? They have no problem understanding the law when their lives aren't on the line, when they can just walk up and punch somebody, arrest somebody, throw them in a car, shoot somebody, kill somebody. They have no problem. But the moment that they think their careers might be on the line, suddenly they just don't know if they can go ahead and enforce the law. We need to fix that. Now about Larry Haskell. Larry Haskell, this guy is ridiculous. He's the most naive person in the world if he really doesn't know that his wife is a racist, homophobic, militant person. For him to sit there and say all these years, because this has been going on for years, his wife, Leslie Haskell, has been posting and talking to people about racism, about homophobia. She has used the most horrific words in her post. She has said some of the most horrific things. She is one of the most hateful people I've ever seen. She has said that she is a white nationalist. But Larry didn't know. All these years, Larry didn't know. Her family, her friends haven't said a word about it on her post. They haven't spoke out against her, which just tells you the people she surrounds herself with. Larry is just like her. Otherwise, he would be speaking out against it, and he would be stopping it. How can you stay with somebody for over 30 years who is a self-proclaimed white nationalist, a racist, a homophobe, somebody who said that they want to start a race war? How do you stay married to that and say, well, I don't share those views? No, Larry does. Let's make sure he does not get reelected. Larry Haskell, on the 44 officer-involved shootings he's ruled over since he's been in office, every single one of them has been ruled justified. That's some amazing statistics right there.
You know it.
But when you think about it, in Spokane, with over 125 officer-involved shootings from the data that we've collected since 1974, every single one of them has been ruled justified. Even the ones where we find out that the person they killed, they murdered, like David Novak and Ethan Murray. When they kill these people who are unarmed, who have not committed any crime, and they have the guts to tell us it was justified, we have killers, murderers, serial killers, working for the police department and the sheriff's department. We need them to be held accountable, we need them out of the sheriff's department, and we need them in jail just like any other person that would be murdering people. These laws that have been enacted for police reform, they don't just protect us, they protect police officers as well, because as was mentioned earlier, if the officers would take these police reforms and learn to work with them, they would slow down, they would de-escalate. They wouldn't run into a situation like they did in Vancouver and shoot into a group of people, killing a fellow officer. A deputy in Vancouver shot and killed a police officer. He didn't shoot the suspect, he shot a police officer. So these laws can protect everyone, but the police officers are so much against having police reform. They want to kill so bad that they'll kill each other. We need these police reforms for everyone. We need these laws because police are not held accountable after they kill us. We need to stop them from killing us in the first place. So whatever you do, fight to keep these laws going forward. We need police reform. Thank you.
We have 15 minutes of battery life. So Jack Archer, we're proud to have her here. She's with Spokane Community Against Racism. And then we'll have Amber Peace speak for just a few minutes as well. Thank you, Jack.
In deference to battery life, I'll keep it brief. I hope you don't mind me using my phone to keep track of what I've got to say here. Hello again. My name is Jack Archer. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm here to represent Spokane Community Against Racism. I am so honored to have been invited by Debbie to speak and to be in the presence of all these impacted families who bravely share their stories today. Thank you so much for continuing to push forward. I'm here to talk about how police reform impacts the lives of BIPOC people specifically. Now, originally I was going to speak after Martina Morris, who was going to hit you with some awesome stats. And so I didn't prepare as many on my own, but I do have one. One is that in Spokane, as reported in 2020, Black people were 5 times more likely to be arrested in this county than white people. 5 times more likely. We're 2% of the population, 5 times more likely. To say nothing of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, our Latinx brothers and sisters, our Asian Pacific Islander brothers and sisters, our multiracial brothers and sisters, the other people, our siblings across the other non-white races, quote unquote, who are also bearing these horrible statistics in this city that, I love Spokane, but it ain't that diverse around here. And when I think about that stat, I think about how we talk about this, how we talk about who's arrested and why. And there are people in this city and county, in Spokane specifically, and across our nation, but let me speak to what I know. There are people who will tell you that this has something to do with the people who are arrested. They'll tell you that this has something to do with these individuals and the communities that they come from that makes them somehow more likely to be arrested, to commit crimes, that there are something to do with criminogenic forces or stats or things that make us more likely to come into contact with police. Because at the end of the day, they believe the myth of race so wholeheartedly. Let me repeat that, the myth of race so heartedly that it is easier for them to believe that there is something in these superficial differences between us that puts us in contact with police, and that it is not instead the wages of a system brought forward by a privileged few to keep us divided. We are arrested at these rates, we are being killed at these absurd rates, we are being harmed at these absurd rates because there are privileged few who don't want to see solidarity across superficial divides. They don't want to see us come together across race, such as it has been invented. They don't want us to see us come together across religion and language and creed and gender and sexual orientation and experience. They don't want to see us unite, but we need to unite in solidarity across these divides to build communities that care for each other, that love each other, that do better together than apart, that don't rely on authoritarianism, that don't rely on the powers of badges or guns or violence of any kind in order to create safe and loving environments for one another. We can do that together. This tool of racism, we see it playing out in that 5 times arrest stat. We also see it playing out in the statistics coming out of our prosecutor's office, from Larry Haskell's office. And we don't need to care or see what he says on social media to know who is being charged, who is being held, who is rotting behind bars because they can't make cash bail, right? That is happening now. There's one other statistic that I'm going to share that was shared earlier, and I want to repeat it, and that is 62%. 62%. That is the drop in violence.
Thanks, Larry.
In police
Glad you stopped by.
violence against our community members. Police killing in this state since the laws were passed in 2021. With a stat like that, with a 62% drop, with those 30 lives that David Novak kept reminding us of that have been saved, we cannot afford to go back. We cannot afford it.
Number 1 in the country.
Thank you. Number 1 in the country for saving lives, for seeing that reduction of violence. So we have, the only things that we should see in caskets, the only things that we need to make sure do die are these bills. 2037, 1788, 5919. We need to kill these bills, and then we need to promote the kind of police accountability that we have seen moving forward on behalf of all of us, knowing that when we uplift our neighbors, we uplift our black and brown neighbors, we uplift these members of our community that we've seen here today, we're uplifting all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Boy, that was great. And more peace. Come on up before we run out of battery. Come on up. That's a really important thing. Martina would be upset at us if we didn't make sure to point that out. We are number 1 in the country. We're down 62% in deaths in our state in 1 year. That's huge. We are number 1.
Hey, Grams.
Good afternoon, Spokane. My name is Anwar Peace, and I'm a 21-year police accountability activist. First, I would like to say this. I never knew David Novak. I really wish I had known him. So let me be clear on this. Even though that I did not know David, I deeply love David, as well as I too will truly miss not having David in our community. I will declare this factual statement that David Novak did not deserve to die at the hands of police, no matter the false police narrative that the Spokane Police Department continues to try to spin out to the public about David. In fact, recently, I had the ability to look into the eyes of David's killer. He showed no remorse about the police bullet that he used to shoot David in the back. But sadly, David's case highlights the ingrained dysfunction the Spokane Police Department has within itself. In fact, after David's killing, this department gave the officer a promotion and a raise.
Hey, thanks.
This
Have a good day.
ingrained dysfunction this department has is well documented. So allow me, a 21-year police accountability activist, to issue my very own cultural audit for the Spokane Police Department.
Yes.
Sadly, I must report the fact that nationally, officer line of duty deaths and officer suicides have been the same number multiple years in a row. Case in point, officer suicides have been status quo in the departments until last year, with 4 DC officer suicides since the DC insurrection, which has highlighted this issue. Sadly, I must report that domestic violence rates in law enforcement households is 6 times the national average. Case in point, in 2003, when Tacoma Police Chief David Brain killed his estranged wife, Crystal, and then killed himself in front of their 2 kids at a grocery store, a day after Crystal's allegations of abuse were publicized in the media reports. After his death, other victims of Chief Brain came forward, which those victims said that Chief Brain sexually abused them as well as rape allegations as well. Sadly, I must report, the Spokane Police Department has been hiring sexual predators to the force for years. Case in point, recently former Spokane police officer Nathan Nash was arrested for the 2nd time for rape while on duty with a different victim, and that victim had a disability. Plus, he was also part of an SPD, a spousal investigation during the same time. Sadly, I must report the fact that the Spokane Police Department has a historic rape culture within itself. Case in point, the 2015 police officers' Halloween party where Sergeant Gordon Ennis raped a fellow female SPD officer. As well, in 2016, Officer Chris Conrath admitted he had a sexual encounter with a woman he met while responding to a domestic violence call, which is an abuse of power. Officer Conrath, in 2020, was the subject of an IA investigation, and there were allegations of sexual harassment on the part of Officer Conrath towards young rookie female SPD officers. None of these abuses were caught by the department's officer early warning system, which is based off Seattle PD's early warning system. Seattle PD is now spending $300,000 to revamp the early warning system. It is my belief that the Spokane Police Department must do the same. It is time for the Spokane Police Department to initiate random drug and psychological testing for all police department personnel. I think a lot of the rudeness from officers and unprofessional behaviors or police misconduct is a direct result of officers not handling their stress properly.
Hey, Derek.
It does not take a lot or a big incident for an officer to develop psychological issues. All the little things they go through after time can build up and manifest itself in disastrous ways. Instituting these random tests will show the public, as well as officers and their families, that the community wants them to be safe and healthy as they patrol the streets of Spokane. Finally, sadly, I must report that in December, the police chief disbanded a 10-member police anti-crime team, or PAC team, after a federal judge found 2 officers of the PAC team had lied in court, and because of those lies, the criminal went free. So let that sink in for a moment. A federal judge found Spokane officers are willing to lie in court, and that lie could have contributed to an innocent man spending a lot of time in jail. This is not surprising. Since its creation in 2011, the PAC team has been responsible for the majority of police misconduct headlines in the news. Like the fact that every summer for the past few years, the PAC team has been involved in officer-involved shootings. We as a community now know because of public records requests. That a police captain filed an internal complaint against a PAC team sergeant for the lack of supervision of the PAC team. Through that internal complaint from that captain, We as a community now know that the PAC team has been doing out of policy pursuits in order to deploy GPS trackers, which when deployed, it explodes onto a suspect's car, as well as failing to get a warrant, which is required before any pursuit can take place. We as a community believe that lying to a federal judge is a crime, and that those 2 officers should be immediately fired. As for the disbanded PAC team, and as far as the disbanded PAC team is concerned, every investigation and court case the team has been involved in needs to be looked into by an outside agency. This would ensure no one's freedom has been taken away by the lies and unconstitutional policing by the PAC team. Here's a quick recap of the kind of officers that have been in this department. 2 officers were caught by the DEA with illegal steroids. 2 officers were caught being rapists. And now 2 officers were caught lying to a federal judge. It is time for the City Council to ask the Department of Justice to do a patterns of practice investigation into the Spokane Police Department. As well, the City Council should immediately pass police reform laws. Anything less from the City Council at this point will be seen and viewed by the community as the City Council condoning patterns of unconstitutional policing and illegal behavior by this police department. Thank you, Spokane, for your time. My name is Anwar Peace, and I support the Novak family. Spokane, do me this favor, please. Please send your peaceful blessings to the Novak family during their time of grief for David. Rest in peace, David. We got you back, and we will get justice for you.
Justice for David.
Justice for David.
Okay, so we're all done now. Just remember, we're number 1 in the country. We're down 6. I had heard it was 60. Jack had heard it was 62%. That's for the amount of police-caused deaths in our state. In the entire country, we had the biggest drop. The runner-up is Florida. They had a 40% drop. But we're 60%. Let's not stop that momentum. Let's keep that momentum going. And how do you do that? Contact your legislature. Make sure that they vote no. Or
Sorry
do what
about
they
all
can to
that,
stop
folks.
these bills. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you, Debbie.
Good job, man. Hi. That's on me. It definitely saw
I'm flying along, it's like there's snow down there.
Yeah.
Get this dipshit up here, man. This camera guy. So, remember last year or 2 years ago when we were here for that law enforcement memorial thing?
Yeah.
He was here filming that. And I can't remember what's her husband's name. Yeah. Anyways, we were standing right here, dude. And that guy came out and we had these signs. And he like, dude, he just looked down and kept on walking. I'm like, dude, why wouldn't you?
I'm going to sneak over there and get that.
Debbie Novak. And Novak's N-O-V-A-K.
So Debbie, talk to us about what you guys are doing.
This is a rally against the rollbacks, and Washington Coalition for Police Accountability had a rally on Thursday at the Capitol steps in Olympia. So we're trying to back them up and support them because there is movement going to roll back or push back on some of the new laws that were passed in 2020 in regards to police safety and police reform. And we don't want that to happen.
All right, and for those who are unfamiliar, describe some of those laws that they're looking to roll back.
1310 is one of the laws, and that the one that stands out in my mind about 1310 is it says that lethal force can only be used as last resort. It talks about probable cause versus reasonable suspicion, and then that an officer has a requirement to use de-escalation or to try something less than lethal before they use lethal force, because they're finding out that the officers aren't doing the distance, the time, and the de-escalation prior to shooting. So they're trying to get them to slow down, which of course will save lives.
And why is this so important?
My son David Novak was shot and killed here in Spokane by a Spokane City police officer January 7th, 2019. He was shot in the back as he attempted to walk through the front door to his home, and he was unarmed. Never should have happened. And it happened within 11 seconds of the officer that arrived on the scene. So, and I've been contacted by a lot of other organizations and families that have been through similar incidences where they've lost loved ones due to a police force. And I see that there's no accountability. The police department in the past, and it's not just our police department, I'm hearing it from other police departments as well, and other states as well. They're really unregulated. They have not really seen any progressive change throughout the police departments, and we need change. We need to see change. And one of those changes would be to do something with the prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorneys work day to day with the police officers that are rendering decisions on whether they should be held justified or unjustified any use of lethal force. House Bill 1507, which did not make it through the legislature this session, we're expecting it to come back up with the next session. So we're trying to educate people about the House bills. House Bill 1507 will serve for us to have a truly independent prosecutor when there's a use of force, a deadly use of force by a police officer. It wouldn't be overseen and investigated by his own people. It'd be completely independent. And that prosecutor would be out of the executive branch. They wouldn't be located, in a physical area with the people that they're making decisions on.
And of the bills that could be rolled back, which ones are you guys after to support today?
Ones we're talking about today are House Bill
You're welcome,
2037, 1788, and Senate Bill 5919. And just to kind of crunch it down a little bit, they really serve to lower the bar for when lethal force or physical force can be used, which means they want to drop it from probable cause down to reasonable suspicion. We don't want the bar lowered. We want to continue to save lives, which is what's happening now. We're saving lives. Lives are being saved. The numbers for Washington State, we are #1 in the country for the amount of lives saved. We're right about 60-62% in the entire country. The average across the country for lives saved for last year is approximately 2%. Ours is down 60-62%. And if you go to next steps, Washington, that's all documented. And you'll be able to see credible, factual information on those numbers.
What else would you like to share with us that I haven't already asked?
I want Spokane to know that what they did in 2020 did make a difference. Washington State should be heralded as a state that has made a huge difference on saving lives, and that they are progressive with their police reform, and it is saving lives, and that's important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're really trying to back up. Yeah.
Now I wonder if Crim 2's going to interview her.
Hey, Debbie? I mean, I don't think we've been out here.
Ian? Me too. I don't think I've been.
I mean, I haven't been out here much. Do you mind if you interview us?
Should we get this one too? He's got it.
I got it.
Oh,
I might grab some.
I'll keep it going.
Yeah, really glad to get that one. That camera guy. He was totally like he just walked by before and just you could have like you got both sides right there. They're right about that.
No doubt.
See, I always get you and Al mixed up. Don't ask me why.
He's old.
Don't ask me why. And you know this is only going to get worse as I get older. It's not going to get better.
All right, real tough one. Can you say and spell your name?
Debbie Novak, Debbie Novak.
Okay.
Just tell me a little bit about why.
Hey, by the way,
This is a rally against the rollbacks, and I'm here in solidarity and to support the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, who I'm a member of. They did their own rally at the Capitol Steps in Olympia this last Thursday.
you don't want to have to. If I don't, I'm going to feel shitty for not.
There's 3 House bills specifically that are still going through the legislature this session. House Bill 20.
I might stop by later, Al. I got to go to the dentist at 4. I'll let you know.
Senate Bill 5919. And just in a nutshell, what those 3 bills do is they water down the legislation that the citizens of Washington State worked so hard to get passed last year in the year 2021. So we're trying to stop that. We do not want those bills to make it. So we're asking people to write to their representatives, to write to Governor Inslee, and to ask them not to approve those bills. So 2037, 1788, and then Senate Bill 5919. So anyway, what they do is what's happening is those bills will water down the laws that were passed last year. The House bills that were passed last year in regards to police reform and police accountability and police safety.
All right, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you also a proponent of House Bill 1057? It's okay if not.
I can't remember which one 1057
That was
is.
independent investigations for
Oh,
police.
I can talk about that. Independent investigation. Okay, I talked today about House Bill 1507. That was in the legislature, which is kind of hooks up with the previous House bill. I believe it's 1057. But 1507, there's the Office of Independent Investigation, which got passed last year. We also need something in place so our prosecuting attorneys are not put in a situation where they're having to investigate and make decisions on their own. The prosecuting attorneys work on a daily basis with these officers that they're making a decision on. You know, they need that space. We need an office, we need an independent prosecutor, which is House Bill 1507. So I bring that up even though it didn't make it through the legislature this session because I want people to watch for it for next session. You're going to see some big change in law enforcement as far as accountability. And when you see change with law enforcement accountability, you see lives that are saved. That's when you start seeing numbers.
All right, and what would it mean to you personally if you guys are able to prevent the rollbacks and also get those other bills passed for police accountability? What would it mean for you?
That's my number one goal, because that's David Novak. My son, David Novak, was shot and killed by a Spokane City police officer January 7th, 2019. I obviously can't bring him back. Wish I could, but I can't bring him back. So I'm fighting for justice in the name of my son, David Novak, and also for all the other families, and there have been many, many of them who have contacted me with the same heartache and the same broken hearts, where their loved one was taken too fast. Everything happened too fast. We need the police officers to de-escalate. We need them to slow down. They call it time, distance, de-escalation. It saves lives. And not only does it save lives of, you know, the regular citizens in Washington State, but, you know, you heard about what happened in Vancouver. It just makes me wonder, Sahota, makes me wonder if that officer still would have been alive too. You know, they've got to be trained better, and they need to slow down. And it seems like if you hold them accountable, those things start to happen. We've also got the Jesse Saray case for charges pressed against Officer Nelson over in the Auburn area. And then we've got the 3 other officers that have charges against them right now in reference to Manny Ellis. So we have 4 officers in Washington State right now with charges pending against them.
Anything else you want to say, or that I didn't ask about that you thought I might ask about?
Spokane, you are to be heralded. You are to be complimented. You were part of what happened in 2020 and demanded change, and the change is here. Let's not lose that momentum. Let's not let the laws get rolled back again.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry, one more.
And like you were saying, a lot of the speakers were saying that police reform is working. Like you see it working, even though like the sheriff has said that crime is up, that law enforcement will say.
Okay. We were supposed to have Dr. Martina Morris here. She has a master's degree in statistics, and she also is a retired professor from the University of Washington, where she taught 3 years in sociology. There was a mix-up on her flight, but anyway, she was supposed to be here, and when she comes up with these figures that she passes along to the Washington Coalition, she's getting them from the data that comes from Spokane City and Spokane County. So it comes from them, this data does. Crime is not up in Spokane. Matter of fact, homicides are down 35% in Spokane from last year. 35%. Robberies are down 16% from last year. And if a person wants to study that and back that up with anything, they can go to Next Steps Washington, the website there. And I'm going to try and get Dr. Morris here maybe next month to speak more about the statistics, because it's something we all should be very proud of, including the police department. In the state of Washington, across the country, we are number 1. We have had the biggest drop in lethal force, so police cause deaths in the state of Washington. Okay, thanks you guys.
Hey, Mr. Van Can. Well, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe. Have a good day.